a lot on the part of the mitigation, and I think that the idea of regional and local NDCs is a very good idea, because the more we go into the details, the better, because we have a very difficult problem ahead of us. We have a great urgency to address these issues of grave existential consequences, and we need fast and robust action. And the science is ruthless and shows us the level of insufficiency of our collective action so far. The World Meteorological Organization says that there is a 50% probability of the annual average temperature reaching the 1.5 degrees Celsius over the next 5 years. So this was something that we were looking at the end of the century. It's really happening before our eyes. It's not happening in our grandchildren's time, not even in our children's time, but in our own times. So already we are at 1.2 degrees and we're experiencing unprecedented destruction. The droughts in Europe, bringing problems in energy, bringing problems in transportation, bringing problems in food security, but also the devastating floods in Pakistan with unprecedented amount of the city, of the country being affected, should ring a very hard bell that these half measures can no longer provide a remedy. So we hope that the resolution of the European Parliament and of course the COR will serve as a call for more and better and urgent action. The stakes are very high in Egypt for COP26, and we have to fight against the backslide of climate goals that were achieved at COP26. The Glasgow Climate Pact specifically requests countries to revisit and strengthen the 2030 targets in their nationally determined contributions by the end of 2022, the famous ratchet mechanism. It was already mentioned that in the UNEP emissions report, we have 66% chances of hitting 2.7 degrees by the end of the century, even if we, with the pledges that are now on the table. But according to the Climate Action Tracker, no rich countries except Australia have submitted a stronger NDC since Glasgow, with only 15 countries globally having submitted a new NDC altogether in the globe. So at the same time, the Carbon Action Tracker still ranks our NDC, the European Union NDC, as insufficient, and they're expressing strong concerns for its new investment in fossil infrastructure since the invasion in Ukraine, as well as the expansion of fossil fuel subsidies across member states. So all signatory governments, including the Union and its member states, should make every effort to bring their pledges online with the Paris Agreement and enhance and bring new NDCs before COP27. So here comes the leading role of the EU that we must play in the run-up to the summit. We must use all our diplomatic channels to engage all parties in scaling up their short, medium and long-term climate policies and raising the ambitions to their NDCs to a level compatible with a 1.5 degree pathway. Of course, the current geopolitical situation really shows the urgency to cut dependence on fossil fuels and the addiction on fossil fuels and the need to boost the deployment of renewables and the necessary grids. And it gives us an opportunity of stepping up the European leadership in this regard. Even the optimistic scenario of limiting the temperature to 1.5 degrees would have irreversible adverse effects and impacts on human systems and ecosystems, and it would significantly reduce our adaptive capacities and thus leading to loss and damages, which is the hot potato of this COP. So this is really the momentum for adaptation and loss and damage is something we have been talking since Paris, and the time to arrive at a quantifiable and agreed global goal and adaptation, which is a very elusive target, is at hand during this 2-year dialogue, and we must not shy away from getting to this global goal of adaptation. There is this measurable outcome should provide the thorough understanding of climate risks and associated adaptation needs, and also loss and damage caused at all the levels of governance. And we have to increase the availability of consistent and comparable data. We have to determine and enhance the provision and accessibility of the means of implementation, including finance and technology support, which are needed to achieve the goal. And finally, to develop and use a common set of qualitative and quantitative metrics, methodologies, and approaches to track progress towards achieving the goal. And here, really, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are the one and only globally politically agreed set of measurable indicators, really come to mind. And there's been tremendous work being done, especially in Europe, for the localization of the SDGs for cities, and also now upcoming for regions, because the GRC is coming up with this tool. So we have to agree that there was limited progress on the global dialogue on loss and damage during the Bonn agreement, and we have to also see that we need an IPCC special report specifically focused on loss and damage, because we had the political agreement that there is a liability of the global north for loss and damage, but the calculation of loss and damage is something that's proving a little bit quite difficult. But it's very obvious and clear that the 100 billion number, which has been discussed and was pulled out of a hat in Copenhagen and never materialized until now, is a magical number which is not going to get the business done. We're talking about a very different scale of financing that is necessary, and that should necessitate the rewiring of the global financial infrastructure to practically move towards a new global Marshall Plan, which, if we look at the Marshall Plan, that was about 2% of the American GDP at the time, the US GDP at the time. So that would be something in the range of about 6 or 7 trillion and not 100 billion. This is a tremendous change, but I think that it's becoming clearer by the day that this is a cost that will only multiply if we do not act now in a concentrated effort in a way that leaves no one behind, and to do that, everybody needs to be on the table. We will try to do that in the African COP and discuss openly and clearly. There is an issue of a concern about the inclusivity. In Glasgow, we had an issue of exclusion due to COVID issues, but we had many calls from NGOs and civil society that they were not able to participate meaningfully. Of course, Egypt has the worst record in the world in jailing journalists, so and it's a remote location. But I think that we will all do our best, because we now understand that there's no way to not do this. Thank you very much for this opportunity.